Hi, I'm Kevin Hill, and as you can see, we're going to do a tip video today. I spent the last few minutes doing some very interesting painting right up here, and it should help us learn a lot. Of course, if you're enjoying these and you want to see more, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for future painting videos. All right, let's get started. Now, as you can see here, I've been making a mess. What I decided to do was pick out a few elements of a landscape painting. Here's the pink tree. Everybody likes the pink trees. I got a regular evergreen mountains and a cloud. And it took me, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes, maybe a little more to paint all this in. And you can see, as far as the values are concerned and, the rules of painting, I did it right. Why does it look so weird? Well, today we're going to try to see if we can do a little experimenting and figure out what went wrong here. And now I am using acrylic paint. This is a bigger problem with acrylic paint, so that's why I'm doing it here. It does happen with oil, but very, very, very rarely. So today is for acrylics. And we're going to do this again on the other side. After we figure out what went wrong, we're going to do our experiment and really try to learn and understand what happened so that you guys don't make the same mistake. I think it would be helpful for us to look at some of the acrylic paintings that we've done together in the past. Maybe we'll get a better idea of what went wrong in this one. The first one we're going to look at today here is this sunset. We did this a little while ago in acrylic, of course. And you can see that, well, the colors look good and everything seems right, but we did that in the other practice painting. So we're trying to figure out what went wrong. Look at the background. Look right where that sun is. Do you see it? It's glowing. And the reason it's glowing isn't so much because it's bright. I mean, the whole painting's fairly bright. The foreground's dark, but there's a lot of bright colors. So why is it glowing in the background? Part of it is because it's very, very soft. One of the biggest dangers in acrylic painting is that your paint goes on smooth and it's easy and you leave it and then it dries and then it's hard. And that's exactly the problem in our other landscape. We'll put that old one back up on the screen here. Do you see what went wrong? It's just so hard. All right, let's look at the next one. Now this one here is our beautiful, kind of old looking dark landscape. I enjoyed doing this one. Now look in the background. You see, again, look at those mountains. So it's a similar shape to the one we did in our practice painting, but look how soft they are. You kind of lose the edges underneath the clouds. Speaking of clouds, this is a good one to look at as well. Those clouds are so soft, but how do we get those soft edges? Well, we're gonna do our experiment painting and see if we can figure out the differences. Now here's a garden, and there are more sharp edges in this because it's closer. This one I really want you to see the tree. Do you notice that, yes, there are hard edges on the bark, and yes, there are hard leaves, but they're also opposed by soft edges and soft leaves. I'll show you how to do that. That's important. Now let's talk about the seascape. And again, the clouds are important, but it's really the same idea in the mist of the of the ocean as well. Everything is softened, and I used a dry brush blending technique. Many, many soft edges with just a few hard ones to kind of set it off. Now in this last painting, we've got that snowy mountain in the background and our beautiful autumn tree. Really take a good look at that tree. You can use the same technique to paint the pink tree. What I did was, again, hard edges kind of in the middle, and then I did lots of loose and broken edges out on the outside, but the values are pretty much the same as the practice painting. The big difference is simply the softness of it. Well, now hopefully you see how important it is to keep your edges soft when you're acrylic painting. The reason it's not so important with oils is because you can always go back and blend. It's just not that big of a deal. In fact, sometimes you overblend and we get mud. With acrylics, it's exactly the opposite problem. Well, now I'm going to show you how to repaint all of these elements of the landscape, and this time we're going to do them right and a lot better. Now I have my mister bottle, I've got my palette ready, I've got my jar of water. I'm going to squirt the paints like we always do. Since we're going over mistakes, I've said this before in the past, but if you got like a wet thing, like this up here is wet, it's not, but if it was, don't go spraying it because then you get little beads of water. Just if you do, you have to work all the water in. Well, now that we've seen the other paintings and we kind of understand what's going on up here, let's see if we can repaint the cloud better this time. So I've got my palette. You can see my paints are kind of, some of them are dry, some of them are not. Let me mist the big piles because those are still wet. There we go. Of course, I've got my little jar of water. You dip your brushes in there and you set them down on the table. That way they don't dry out too quickly. All right, here we go. So up here, this background is dry. I've got my little bristle brush. I'm going to take a little bit of blue and white. I did not do this last time. Last time I used straight white, and I also used, let me show you, this amazing chisel edge brush. It's good for a ton of things, but for clouds, maybe this kind of cloud at least, it's not the best. You can still get soft edges with it, but it'll be easier with this. I'm trying to, trying to make it as easy as possible. Now this is a bigger issue with acrylic painting because the paint just fuses onto the canvas. With oils, like I said before, it just is so much easier to get soft edges. It's the other way around, right? With acrylic, it's easy to get crispness and sharpness and beautiful detail, and it's kind of tricky to get those soft edges. So anyway, I'm using a dry brush blending technique. Lots of water. I dipped in water there. Lots of water. And I'm kind of rolling in with my brush. Smudge the edge. Oh, look at that. See that? Because it's still wet. Get in here and smudge it. There we go. You can use just a little bit more paint on your brush and then kind of work this in and get some softer edges that way as well. Light touch. Use a soft tooth canvas. Don't get anything that's too terribly rough. All right. See, I can use that. This is the dry brush blend. Actually, this is dry brush blending. The finger smudging, I don't know what that is. That's just useful. There you go. I've named it. It's useful. Oh boy. Here we go. Let's go ahead and just take our black and a little blue and a little red. This is the exact same color that I used before. A little white, and I actually blended in here fairly well, but let's see if we can get some softer edges this time. I'll go a little darker just for the sake of being more similar. Right up here. Soft edges. Get in there and do your finger blend. All up in there. Good. See this? This is it. And look at how much more professional. See, this looks like you just started, and this looks like you've been doing it for a little while. That's the difference. What have we done? We've done the same. The values are there. The colors are there. The only difference is that we softened it. Hopefully this is a big help. And this can help you in your oil paintings too. You know, you could still do hard edges. It can still happen. It's just easy to fix. You just get in there with the blender brush and your problem's finished. There. That's it. Wipe your brush out. And honestly, to do it soft doesn't really take a whole lot longer. It takes about the same amount of time. I'm going to get in here and get a little more of our white, and I'm going to put just a hair more highlight out on this. Why? Because now I'm building up the layers of color. See that? A little bit harder each time, a little brighter each time. Still, hit those edges. Good. And watch that thing glow. See, look at that. I'm already getting, you see that hard edge? I have a bristle brush and I still got a hard edge. Make sure you whack those down. Look at that. Look at that. Nice, huh? There you have it. A more professional looking cloud. Use the dry brush blending technique as much as you can when you do your acrylic paintings. Let's tackle those foothills next. Here's my palette. Let me grab us a little bit of our green, yellow, little umber, white, blue. I think that's what I put in. Let me check it, make sure it looks good. Look at this, mixing right here. That's one easy way to get it, right? That's close enough. All right, dip into the water. I'm using my little number 6 flat brush. And I'm going to go ahead and use this flat brush to show you that you can create amazing effects with it, because it's really a very, very, very handy brush. Look at that go. See that? All right, that's basically what we have on the other side. So what do we do? A couple things you can do. You can either, and we have to do it quick though, you can either do your finger blend, or let me show you something else. Get your little bristle brush out, get it cleaned, and let me go in with a little bit more paint, maybe a little white and blue. Remember I showed you the painting that had the distant clouds over it? Well, I'm going to try to do that right here. Not so extreme, but same idea. I'm going to roll my brush, do my dry brush blending, get a nice layer of mist working along the bottom. Softness, isn't that nice? And then you take it, wipe your brush, you take it right up to the tippy top of the mountain. And you could, if I had clouds wrapping around, I would do that as well, but I don't, so I'm just going to go with this and whack those hard edges down. Yes. So there you have it, soft edges. But I used mist this time instead of just painting them in all at once. Interesting, huh? That looks like mist to me. Let's do another mountain. Let me set that brush down, dip it in water, grab my other one, dip that one in water. Everything goes into the water before it comes up here for the most part. You get a color that's similar. Good. This should be just fine. Throw this up on the canvas, see what we get. And there it is. Now this one I might leave just a hair harder. Now you could detail these out any way. These are just the idea of kind of rolling little mountains or foothills in the background. Not super important. There. Come back with this brush. I'm going to roll in some mist again. A little black this time, a little black and blue, maybe a little red. Something just to kill the brightness of it. I think somewhere right in that range is good. And look at this. Roll that right in. Oh, these mountains are misty. This is the way I would put a misty mountain into an acrylic painting. It's a very easy way to do it. There are certainly other ways to do it. This is a very easy way. Look at the depth that we have created in there. Softness, richness, a little depth. I'm going to get some darker colors. And this is a good brush to kind of come in here and just get yourself a little more texture right on the edge. As long as you keep it soft, it's going to be great. Tap it a little while it's still wet. Tap it with your finger. And because this one's closer, you can have some harder edges opposed by softer edges. Now let's work on this evergreen, because the evergreen's kind of behind that tree. It doesn't really matter, we're just practicing, but I've got my little flat brush synthetic, and I'm pulling it right through all this good stuff, trying to create a nice soft trunk color. It's a little bit on the brown side. Okay, let's start. It doesn't make any difference. I'm just trying to match the height roughly. There it comes, right down to about, that's far enough. What do you think? Good enough? There we go. Looks good to me. Now, I do want to highlight, because I did on the other side. Let me highlight this. Now, one thing that I did, I put the trunk in after. This time I'm doing it first, because, watch this. Well, I guess there's nothing to see here. I'm just highlighting it, but watch in a minute. Yikes. Watch in a minute, because we're going to allow some of this kind of to show through differently. It'll look more professional. Tap it to soften. You guys know the drill. Oops, it's wet behind there. Acrylics don't like to be layered wet paint over a wet background. They don't like that. So you get in here and you sort of kind of mess with it a little if you need to. That's better. It won't be wet for long. By the time we get down there, it'll probably be dry. All right. I'm going to set that brush down. I'm going to grab the bristle brush, because when you're going for softness, this is a good brush. You also have the option of using a soft fan brush. We may get this one out, actually. I should probably do that to show you how it works, but let's start with the bristle brush, and let's take our green, black and blue right here. A little brown never hurt, a little red never hurt. What is that? Black, yellow, throw everything in there. It doesn't matter. Color isn't super important for practice, but let's go ahead and kind of a medium amount of paint, not tons. Let's come up here, and I'm going to stroke this. Watch this difference here. I'm going to stroke it just like this. Now, because we're getting closer to the foreground, it's okay to have some sharp edges. That's totally great. Remember I showed you in the other paint, we looked at all the paintings, I showed you there's some hard edges in some of those trees that are close up. What's the difference? They're opposed by the soft edges. In oil painting, this comes very naturally. You don't have to do it, you don't have to think about it, it's just there. Good luck if you don't want it there, right? But in acrylics, it's the opposite. So I'm tapping, just like I did over there, but I'm using less paint, less pressure, and I'll smudge it every once in a while. Ooh, look at that go. Another thing to help this look a little more professional, that's the idea here. We want these things to look good and professional. Honestly, I want them to look like oil paintings, mine personally. I'll give it a little flick. It's kind of wet still in there. Glop it on while it's still wet. Bring it out. And there you have it. A nice little tree. Softer, it looks certainly more realistic. And we've good flow of negative space, which we actually did over there too. It's just a matter of having it softer. Wash the brush out. It's not something you hear me say every day. Wash the brush out. Okay, it's washed. That's one of the advantages. Take some green, yellow, there we go. Kind of mush it all around. I'm going to tap on my highlight this time. Tap it on. You get a little better effect that way. At least for an evergreen of this size. You could certainly do many different ways. This way seems to work out pretty well. See how I glopped it on very thick, lots of paint, just wham. And this time I'm being a lot more delicate. This is how you create professional look to your paint. This is how you can make an oil painting look, because let's face it, we don't want our styles to look different. I certainly don't. I want it to look the same. So I'm working hard, because I really do, it matters to me. There we go. Yeah, look at that. Look at that, isn't that cool? Overall, a more professional look. And a couple midtones on the right-hand side would actually be good as well. Helps with the softness again. You don't have, it's not so jarring, right? Good stuff. Now I'm finishing up dropping in a trunk. You guys know how to do this. This is nothing different than normal. All right, there it is. And it's fairly hard. I'm good with that because we can, well, A, we can just touch it a little bit to soften just, you know, just the tiniest bit. And B, I'm good with it being mostly hard because it's close. That's what it is. It's good, and we want it that way. We want it close, so it does need to have some hard edges. We'll try to get our values and our, you know, our shapes kind of like that one. Actually, the values are pretty much the same to the bad one. All right, so now let me show you. I've got pink here. I've got pink just like before. Make sure I get it close. There's, I guess that's my old pile. And this one I used, what did I use? I think I used this brush to glop it on. Not normally the brush of choice, but it made it even more obvious. I wanted to make it obvious. So now this one I'm gonna, well, let's just break it up. You come in, you kind of just tap it like this to kind of put some leaves out on your tree. Now, this can be done a zillion different ways. And another way that I really like, in fact we should do, is, well, I don't know if we actually will get to it, but hey, maybe, is take our little small filbert, a little micro filbert, and put in some extra detail on the limbs, you know, on the leaves of the tree, just a little bits. There we go, nice pockets of negative space. Cover up that trunk a little better than before. Yes, this is it. And tell you what, I'm gonna leave that blank just because I don't want to cover up my evergreen. I want you to still be able to see it. Maybe a little more solid here. Okay. Water, and then I'm gonna go right over here and get my midtone out. Get it out, right? There. Tap that midtone on, just as you would. Now if you tap hard, this doesn't work. If you tap soft, it works out pretty well. There. This is, again, not the only way to do it. Not even the best way if you're gonna do a bigger one. But for one of this scale, it's really a good technique. If you do one that's like, you know, right next to you, like we saw in the garden painting, this technique won't work. You have to use either one of these brushes, and you kind of do a swishing around, you know, to make each individual leaf. That looks pretty good though. Let me get a couple of orange tones. Yes, more tones the better in here. Look at that go. There you go. And now rinse and white and red. And here's our highlight for today. Actually, make sure you really break that brush open. Look at how pretty that is, right out on the edge. The light, of course, is the same. But look at the difference. What have we done? We've created a lot of soft edges. And now on this highlight, I'm gonna just, touch it like that with my finger every once in a while to blend it. Actually, it's still, because we're doing this so fast, it's still a little bit wet under there. Some of the colors, the orange and the red, are a little wet. So you can kind of blend them that way as well, just by tapping them like we would in oil painting. But that looks good. See the difference there? Now, if you want to just come in with a little darker black and red, ooh, there you go. There's a nice dark color for you. And just right in the middle here, sneak in a couple shadows. You can do them last, because you don't necessarily know where you want them. It doesn't matter. Rinse it out, set it down. Let me grab our little tiny micro filbert brush. I think you'll like this. Watch this. Create a little bit more of a brush stroke, because let's face it, dabbing over and over again is a little, I like a little brush stroke work in my painting. Makes it look like it was painted, right? That's just personal preference. If you guys don't want the brush stroke work, you don't have to do this step at all. Leave it as it is and be happy with it. For me, it's worth the couple minutes that it takes. And then last, you get your other brush back out and your flat synthetic, and you get some other color here. I don't know, yellow, brown, white. Also known as the other color, I guess. Yikes. This is kind of fun. You guys have to have fun when you paint, right? Otherwise, what's the point? Looks like we had some paint drip in there. I'm just gonna run it down. This time, much less pressure, a little less little less water in the brush. It creates like a more line effect. I don't know, like a scrapey effect. See that? You go over it many, many times very lightly and see how it kind of creates that scraping effect? That's cool, and that's what you want. And there you have it. The difference between professional and something that looks a little off, in this case, was simply our soft edges. Well, that's all we're going to do for a quick tip video today. I hope you enjoyed seeing how to make your acrylic paintings just a bit softer. Also, don't forget to check out our website, DVDs, and brush line. Thanks for watching.